I'd like to give a special shout out to Dom, Nuno, Steve and Joe from Aerosmith. We love you, Dad.
In the words of our Papa, let's go, baby!
4 guys from Birmingham, with Ozzy at the front of it, created a whole genre that I don't know, your favorite 50 artists spawned from.
Sharon Osbourne on Steven Tyler's tribute to Ozzy Osbourne. The night was already heavy with anticipation. The 2025 MTV Video Music Awards had promised a tribute to Ozzy Osbourne, the man who defined heavy metal, the voice of Black Sabbath, the wild child who became the Prince of Darkness. Fans wondered how it could possibly be done. How do you honor a man whose life was chaos and brilliance all at once? And then, the lights dimmed. A giant screen flickered to life. Jack Osbourne appeared with his children, Ozzy's grandchildren. Their small voices introduced the segment, their faces innocent, their words trembling with both pride and grief. This is for Grandpa Ozzy.
Special shout out to Dom, Nuno, Steve and Joe from Aerosmith. We love you, Dad.
In the words of our Papa, let's go, baby!
Moments later, Steven Tyler, Joe Perry, Youngblood, and Nuno Betancourt took the stage. Together, they launched into the familiar riffs of Crazy Train. The crowd erupted, singing every word, as though Ozzy himself were there. Tyler's raspy voice, unmistakable and raw, cut through the arena. It wasn't Ozzy, but it was close, it was honest, it was passionate, it was respect turned into sound. For Sharon Osbourne, watching from afar, it was overwhelming. She had not been on stage. She had not made a speech. She had chosen silence and distance. But her presence was felt, because every note was a message to her as much as it was to the fans. Sharon's silence after Ozzy's death. Since Ozzy's passing on July 22nd, 2025, Sharon's public words have been few. Her grief has been private, her mourning carried in quiet rituals. She attended the funeral procession in Birmingham, walking behind the hearse, laying flowers at the Black Sabbath bridge, clutching her children's arms for strength. She buried him in Buckinghamshire, surrounded by family. Then, for nearly 2 months, silence. Sharon, the woman known for her sharp tongue and quick wit, said nothing. No interviews. No statements. Just quiet. Fans worried. They wondered if grief had taken her voice away. On September 12th, she broke that silence. In an Instagram post, she thanked fans for the outpouring of love, admitting that their support had carried her through many nights. She shared a video of herself and Kelly at Cornwall Falconry, holding birds of prey. Her caption spoke of trust, of bonds, of healing. It was a small glimpse into her broken heart, wrapped in gratitude. But when Steven Tyler and Aerosmith's Joe Perry stood on that VMA stage, Sharon didn't need to say a word. The performance itself said it all. Ozzy and Steven Tyler had crossed paths for decades. Both frontmen, both survivors of excess, both voices of rock who seemed indestructible. Tyler's voice had carried Aerosmith through the highs and lows of American rock. Ozzy's voice had birthed metal itself. They were not rivals. They were different forces of the same storm. So when Steven Tyler took the mic to honor Ozzy, it wasn't just another cover. It was one legend saluting another. It was a survivor saying goodbye to a brother. Tyler sang Changes with a tenderness that left the audience in tears. And when he closed with Mama, I'm Coming Home, the weight was unbearable. For Sharon, that song has always been personal. Written by Ozzy, Zakk Wylde, and Lemmy Kilmister, it was inspired by his longing for home, for Sharon, for the anchor she provided. Hearing Steven Tyler sing those words after Ozzy's death must have been like reopening a wound. Yet it was also healing because it proved the song and the love behind it lives on. Jack and the grandchildren. What made the tribute even more powerful was Jack's involvement. Along with his children, he introduced the performance. It was not just a family formality. It was symbolic. Ozzy's bloodline, the next generation, passing the torch, reminding the world that he was not just a rock star. He was a husband, a father, a grandfather. For Sharon, seeing her son and grandchildren on screen was bittersweet. They carried Ozzy's name into the future, but they also reminded her of everything she had lost.
To Dom, Nuno, Steve and Joe from Aerosmith. We love you, Dad.
In the words of our Papa, let's go, baby!
No direct quotes have surfaced where she praises the performance by name, but based on her public words, we can piece together her feelings. She has repeatedly emphasized how much fan tributes mean to her, how they carry her through. She has said that she is still finding her footing, that love from around the world is what sustains her. And so, watching a stage full of legends honor Ozzy with his own songs, knowing her family introduced it, there is no doubt it touched her deeply.
This one is from Ozzy.
It was proof that Ozzy's legacy is secure. It was a reminder that even though he is gone, the music will never stop.
I feel unhappy. I feel so sad.
The performance ended with the musicians shouting, "Ozzy forever, man." The crowd roared in response. It was raw, unscripted, heartfelt. For Sharon, those two words summed up everything. Ozzy forever. Not Ozzy the addict. Not Ozzy the scandal maker. Not even Ozzy the Prince of Darkness. Just Ozzy.
Ozzy forever!
The procession ended at the Black Sabbath Bridge, a promise that the world would not forget him. A promise that his name would echo long after the funeral flowers withered. A promise that she would never be alone in carrying his memory. Grief is not a straight line. It comes in waves, sometimes a whisper, sometimes a storm. For Sharon Osbourne, the storm has been relentless since July 22, 2025, the day her husband of 43 years slipped away. But grief is not just hers to carry, because Ozzy Osbourne did not belong only to Sharon. He belonged to the world.
The man you saw on stage was the guy that you got. He was the same person. He was genuine.
Of all the songs performed at the VMAs tribute, none hit Sharon harder than Mama, I'm Coming Home. Written in 1991, the song was Ozzy's love letter to Sharon. Co-written with Lemmy Kilmister, its lyrics spoke of regret, of gratitude, of the longing to return to the woman who had always been his anchor. When Ozzy sang it on stage, he often dedicated it to Sharon. Fans would see him point toward her, a rare moment of public tenderness from the Prince of Darkness. For Sharon, the song was proof that behind the madness, the bats, the scandals, there was a man who adored her. Hearing Steven Tyler sing those words in 2025 was not just a cover. It was a resurrection. It was another man's voice carrying the same devotion across time and loss. For Sharon, it must have felt like Ozzy was speaking again through someone else. Painful, yes, but also comforting. Because even though Ozzy was gone, his words, his love, his music still lived. Public tributes as collective grief. Why do public tributes matter so much? Because they transform private loss into collective memory. Sharon may grieve in silence, writing letters to Ozzy, visiting his grave, keeping his slippers by the bed. But when a global stage like the VMAs pauses to honor him, it tells her, you are not grieving alone. Every guitar riff, every lyric sung by Steven Tyler, every cheer from the audience was a message to Sharon. We remember. We care. We are with you. It is one thing for fans to send Instagram comments. It is another for rock legends to stand on stage and sing her husband's songs with tears in their voices. These tributes are not just performances. They are rituals. They keep Ozzy alive in the collective consciousness. And for Sharon, that is everything. Sharon's life with Ozzy, the chaos and the love. To understand why these tributes cut so deeply, one must remember Sharon's life with Ozzy. It was not an easy marriage. It was marked by addiction, violence, betrayal, and chaos. There were times when Ozzy's demons nearly destroyed them both. In 1989, during a blackout, he tried to strangle her. She pressed charges, and for a moment, it seemed like their marriage was over. But she stayed. She fought for him. She put him in rehab. She rebuilt his career. She forgave when forgiveness seemed impossible. And through it all, she loved him. Fiercely, stubbornly, unconditionally. This is why the world calling him Ozzy forever matters. Because Sharon knows better than anyone how fragile he was, how close he came to not being forever. She knows the battles he fought privately, the tears he shed when no one was looking. She knows the man behind the myth. And now, she sees the myth being honored, and it reminds her that the fight was worth it. Why Steven Tyler's voice resonates. There is something poetic about Steven Tyler singing Ozzy's words. Both men had lived lives of excess, both had stared down addiction, both had been called washed up more than once, and both had clawed their way back. For Sharon, Tyler's raspy wail was not just another performance, it was solidarity. It was one survivor honoring another. She likely heard not just Ozzy's lyrics, but the weight of Tyler's own journey embedded in them. That authenticity made it real. That authenticity made it unforgettable. Jack and the next generation. The choice to have Jack and his children introduce the tribute was deliberate. It turned a moment from a simple performance into a family affair. Sharon has always said her proudest accomplishment is her children. To see Jack standing tall, guiding his own children, introducing a performance for their grandfather, must have filled Sharon with both pride and sorrow. Pride, because Ozzy's legacy is safe in the hands of his family. Sorrow, because Ozzy was not there to see it. For Sharon, this was another reminder that grief is generational. It is not just hers. It belongs to Jack, Kelly, Amy, and the grandchildren. The tribute showed the world that while Ozzy is gone, his family carries him forward. And that, for Sharon, is the truest tribute of all. Healing through music. Sharon has often said that music was both the curse and the blessing of her marriage. It took Ozzy away from her for months on tour, but it also brought them back together. It nearly killed him with the lifestyle it enabled, but it also saved him with the purpose it gave. So when tributes like the VMAs happen, it is music healing her once again. It is music reminding her that Ozzy was not just a man who struggled. He was a man who created beauty, who inspired millions, who left a mark no illness or addiction could erase. For Sharon, hearing those songs is both agony and medicine. They break her heart, and they hold it together. A widow in the spotlight. Sharon is in a unique position. Most widows grieve in private, surrounded by family and close friends. Sharon's grief, however, is public. Every tear she sheds in public is photographed. Every word she writes on Instagram is dissected. Every appearance at a memorial becomes news. The VMAs tribute amplified this. Millions watched, millions commented, millions speculated on what Sharon must be feeling. And though she did not speak directly about Steven Tyler's role, her silence was not emptiness. It was presence. Sometimes, not speaking is the loudest response of all. Ozzy forever. When the tribute ended with the words, "Ozzy forever, man," it wasn't just a shout to the crowd. It was a vow. A vow from one generation of rockers to another. A vow from fans to Sharon. A vow from the world to the widow who now carries his memory. For Sharon, those two words mean everything. Because forever is what she promised Ozzy when they married in 1982. Forever is what she gave him through sickness and health, chaos and calm. And forever is what she must now live without him by her side. But thanks to tributes like Steven Tyler's, she knows forever does not mean alone. Sharon Osbourne's first statement after Ozzy's death. When Sharon Osbourne finally spoke, the world listened. Not because her words were long, not because they were elaborate, but because they were hers. For weeks, fans had waited. For weeks, journalists had speculated. For weeks, the silence had been deafening. And then, suddenly, her voice returned. Her message was short, simple, honest. I'm still having trouble finding the words to express how grateful I am for the overwhelming love and support you've shown on social media. In those opening lines, Sharon told us two things: that grief had robbed her of language, and that gratitude had given her enough strength to speak. The silence that spoke. For nearly 7 weeks after Ozzy's death, Sharon had remained silent. No posts. No interviews. No carefully crafted statements. To some, the silence was surprising. Sharon, after all, has built a career on her voice. She has spoken her mind on live television, battled critics in interviews, and defended her family with ferocity. But in grief, she said nothing. That silence mattered. It showed the depth of her pain. It showed that even the strongest voices can be muted by loss. It showed that grief does not follow a schedule. And for her fans, that silence was a message in itself. Sharon was human, vulnerable, broken. So when she finally spoke, the impact was magnified. It was not just another post. It was the breaking of a drought. It was the voice of a widow emerging from shadows to say, "I see you. I hear you. Thank you." The symbol of the Falcons. Alongside her message, Sharon shared a video. It showed her and Kelly visiting Cornwall falconry, where birds of prey perched calmly on their arms. To casual viewers, it was simply a touching family outing. But to those who looked closer, it was symbolism. Falcons, owls, and hawks are creatures of instinct. They do not land on a hand unless they trust. They do not stay unless they feel secure. Sharon herself explained that bond. They will choose to perch on you only if they sense you are safe and unafraid. For Sharon, this moment was more than an activity. It was a reflection of her inner journey. In grief, she was searching for trust again. Trust in herself, trust in the future, trust that life could continue without Ozzy at her side. The falcons became metaphors for healing, fragile, fleeting, but real. It was also a message to fans that she is learning to find strength not in loud moments, but in quiet ones. That sometimes healing comes not from crowds and cameras, but from nature, from stillness, from the calm weight of a bird choosing you. Fans around the world. Her words, "carried me through many nights," resonated deeply with fans across the globe. Social media flooded with comments. Thousands of people responded not just with condolences, but with stories. They told Sharon how Ozzy's music had saved them, how his songs had carried them through dark times, how his legacy would never die. In Birmingham, fans lit candles near the Black Sabbath bench. In Los Angeles, murals of Ozzy appeared on side streets, with Sharon's name written alongside his, acknowledging the love story behind the legend. In Sao Paulo, a crowd gathered outside a rock bar to play Crazy Train on loop. Everywhere, fans reached out, not just to Ozzy, but to Sharon. And Sharon saw it. She acknowledged it. She said, "None of it has gone unnoticed." That simple assurance comforted millions. It told them that their posts, their drawings, their vigils mattered. That in a sea of grief, their small gestures reached her. Gratitude wrapped in heartbreak. What struck many about Sharon's statement was its balance of gratitude and heartbreak. She was thankful, but she was also lost. She admitted she was still finding my footing, a rare confession for a woman who has always been in control. In those words, fans saw not just Sharon the celebrity, but Sharon the widow. A woman whose husband's chair was now empty. A woman who walked through a house that once echoed with laughter and now echoed with silence. A woman whose public strength masked private tears. And yet she gave thanks. She poured love back into the world even as she was drained. She called the support otherworldly. She chose not to focus on the pain of death, but on the love of life. The beginning of public healing. This statement was not closure. It was not the end of grief. But it was the beginning of public healing. It was Sharon taking the first step toward rejoining the world, even if only through a social media post. It was her telling fans, "I am broken, but I am grateful. I am grieving, but I am listening. I am silent, but I am not alone." Her message set the tone for what comes next.
For the documentaries about Ozzy.
For the tributes from musicians. For the family appearances that honor his legacy. Sharon's words reminded everyone that she is still here, still fighting, still carrying the memory of the man she loved. Why it matters. Some might say it was just a post. But for Sharon's fans and for Ozzy's millions, it was more. It was reassurance. It was acknowledgement. It was a reminder that grief shared is grief softened. Because when Sharon said the love had carried her through many nights, she wasn't just talking about the fans. She was talking about herself, too. About how the bond between Ozzy and his audience had come full circle, how the fans who once leaned on him were now holding her up. And that, perhaps, is the truest legacy of Ozzy Osbourne. Not just music, not just chaos, but connection. The world has heard her words, but words, however heartfelt, are not the end of the story. Sharon Osbourne's life after Ozzy's passing is still unfolding, shaped by choices no one can envy. In her statement, she admitted she was still finding her footing. That small phrase reveals an ocean of truth. Sharon is a woman at a crossroads, torn between grief and duty, between past and future, between the pull of Britain and the embrace of America. The UK dilemma. In Britain, Ozzy is everywhere. He is in the streets of Birmingham, in the Black Sabbath bench by the canal, in the flowers left by fans, in the quiet Buckinghamshire grave where his body rests. Staying in the UK would mean Sharon never has to leave him. She could visit him daily. She could live near the place where his story ended. But the UK is also heavy with silence. Without Ozzy, the house they shared is too quiet. Nights stretch long. Days feel endless. To remain would be to live among ghosts, always reminded of what has been lost. The pull of family in America. In Los Angeles, however, there is life. Her children, her grandchildren, the chaos of dinners, birthdays, new memories. The comfort of family who can fill her days with laughter even when her heart is heavy. Sharon has always said her family is her anchor. Moving closer to them would mean healing in their presence. But it would also mean distance from Ozzy's grave. Thousands of miles. No quiet walks to leave flowers, no morning visits, no physical connection. For Sharon, the thought of leaving him cold in the ground in England is unbearable. This is her dilemma: stay with Ozzy or move with life. It is a choice no widow should ever have to make, but one she cannot avoid. The role of the documentaries. Adding to this weight are the upcoming documentaries. Ozzy Osbourne, Coming Home, BBC, and Ozzy, No Escape From Now, Paramount Plus, are set to tell his story in all its light and darkness. Sharon is at the center of these projects, not just as a widow, but as the woman who shaped his career, who lived his chaos, who gave the world access to their life through the Osbournes. For Sharon, these films are not just productions. They are acts of preservation. They ensure that Ozzy is remembered fully, not only as a wild man, but as a husband, father, and survivor. Every interview she gives, every scene she approves, is her way of saying, "This is the man I loved. This is the man you must not forget." Her statement of gratitude, then, was more than personal. It was the opening chapter in her new role, guardian of Ozzy's story. How tributes shape her healing. The VMAs tribute, fan murals, online messages. All of these have shown Sharon that she's not alone. In her statement, she admitted they had carried her through many nights. That is the power of public mourning. It transforms one woman's grief into a collective act of remembrance. For Sharon, every tribute is not only comfort, it is permission. Permission to keep living.
Permission to keep talking about Ozzy.
Permission to move forward without feeling like she has betrayed him. Because when the world chants Ozzy forever, it is telling her, you are not leaving him behind. He is still here. Gratitude as survival. Sharon's gratitude is not just politeness. It is survival. By thanking fans, she keeps the connection alive. She turns grief into dialogue. She shifts from being a widow in silence to being a woman carried by love. Her words, otherworldly love, carried me through, still finding my footing, are not scripted. They are raw. They reveal how fragile she feels. But they also reveal how determined she is. Sharon is not retreating from the world. She is letting the world hold her up. What comes next? So, what comes after the statement? Sharon herself admits she does not fully know. Perhaps she will divide her time between the UK and the US, keeping a home near Ozzy while spending months with her children. Perhaps she will return to television, where she has always been at ease. Perhaps she will focus entirely on family and legacy projects. What is certain is that Sharon will not fade. She has never been one to step quietly aside. She will remain a force, on behalf of Ozzy, on behalf of her family, and on behalf of herself. Her words have already set the stage. She is grieving, but grateful. Broken, but resilient. Silent, but listening. And always, always devoted. The love story that endures. When Sharon closed her message by thanking fans for their otherworldly love, she echoed her own marriage. Because Sharon and Ozzy's love was otherworldly, chaotic, flawed, but enduring. A love that survived scandals, addictions, separations, and illnesses. A love that carried them through 4 decades. A love that even death cannot fully sever. And so, Sharon's first statement is not just a thank you to fans. It is a vow. A vow that Ozzy's memory will live on. A vow that she will carry him forward. A vow that, even as she struggles to find her footing, she will never let him be forgotten. For Sharon, the world's love is not only comfort. It is proof. Proof that Ozzy Osbourne lives on. Proof that his voice, his music, his legacy remain. Proof that though her nights are long, she is not alone. Ozzy may be gone, but Sharon's voice, and the voices of millions, will keep him alive.